Hey guys, it's Destiny, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about characters that might be a little bit underrated and just characters you should know about nearing Honkai Star Rail's release. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. So a character I immediately want to talk about is Clara, and I have actually made a tier list video before where I rated Clara kind of low on my tier list, especially for the 5 stars. While that isn't necessarily changed too much, I did realize over time that Clara has a really interesting niche, and I think she's actually really good for that niche when the time comes for it. Clara is a physical attacker, which is part of the destruction class. I see the destruction class kind of like an all-rounder class, as the class has decent defenses, decent attack stats, and more. I think that class overall is just a really good all-rounder class, and I feel like Clara takes advantage of this class really well. But to go over Clara's kit to begin, her basic attacks just deal physical damage equal to a percentage of her attack to a single enemy, pretty basic stuff. Her skill deals physical damage equal to a percentage of her attack to all enemies, dealing additional physical damage equal to a percentage of her attack again to enemies marked by Savrok with a mark of counter. All marks of counter will be removed after the skill is used. Now for her ultimate is quite a long one. After using her ultimate, damage dealt to Clara is reduced by an additional percentage, which the beginning percentage is 15, and Clara has a greatly increased chance of being attacked by enemies for 2 turns. So Clara is actually able to taunt with her ultimate, and basically enemies will primarily be targeting Clara. In addition, Savrok's counter is enhanced. When an ally is attacked, Savrok is guaranteed to launch counters. With its counter damage multiplier on the enemy, it increases by 96% when it's starting off, and then adjacent enemies take 50% of the damage dealt to the target enemy. Enhanced counter can take effect 2 times. Her enhanced counter is by far a really powerful thing that Clara has, and when you are in those fights that are taking longer than usual, so when the enemies have a bunch of health, their toughness meter is really hard to break through, a character like Clara is really good for these sorts of fights. Additionally, if you are enjoying the video so far, make sure to hit the subscribe button and let's carry on. The reason why she's so good for these fights is that Clara has a lot of sustainability. If you think about it, since Clara is able to taunt, what you can do is have a shielder with Clara. March 7th is actually an excellent pair for Clara. What you could do is always try to have Clara with a shield with March 7th, and since March 7th can also freeze, that is also a benefit in the case of a longer fight. But what you could do is make sure Clara is good with the shield, and then as you build up Clara's ultimate and using her skills, her basic attacks, and so on, Clara's ultimate just allows her to be so powerful, and you'll primarily want to be getting up her ultimate as soon as you can, due to the fact that while Clara is able to taunt with that, her counter attacks do a lot of damage, and that's how you're going to be winning those really long fights. As for her talent, when she's under the protection of Savrok, Clara's damage taken is reduced by a percentage. Savrok will mark enemies who attack Clara with the mark of counter and retaliate with the counter, dealing physical damage equal to a percentage of Clara's attack. So basically the talent does something similar to the ultimate, where basically you'll be able to have those counter attacks once again. As for her technique, immediately attacks the enemy. Upon entering battle, the chance Clara will be attacked by enemies increases by 2 turns. So if you immediately want to start off this taunt and give Clara that shield, and keep in mind that Clara is able to do that damage reduction, so she can definitely decrease the amount of damage she's taking, which means that your shield is going to last longer on her. So if you were to use her technique prior to battle and then go into battle, you can shield Clara with March 7th shield or any shielder you have, and then basically you can build up that ultimate and make Clara a real powerhouse of a character for these long fights, as I've said. I do feel like Clara can also be pretty good early on. I know that she is a slower character, so the fight might go a little slower, but I'm telling you, those physical attacks, those counter attacks rather, they're really powerful, and I feel like Clara is kind of underrated because of it, but I certainly feel like she has quite a niche because of this. As for Clara's traces, which by the way, traces are unlocked through a skill tree, her first trace is kinship. When Clara is attacked, there is a 35 fixed chance to remove a debuff currently applied on her, which I think is pretty good due to the fact that Clara would not really appreciate those debuffs possibly to her attack or her defense. since Clara wants to be able to do as much damage as possible with her counterattacks, and of course she wants as much defense as possible to be eating up those attacks that she is receiving since she will be taunting enemies. As for her next trait, she has Under Protection. Her resistance to crowd control debuffs increases by 35%. This is also pretty good since I believe the crowd control debuff actually stops your counterattacks from occurring. I can be mistaken about that, but I did read somewhere in Jing Yun's kit how basically the Lightning Lord, which is considered a counterattack, does not work if there is a crowd control debuff on Jing Yun. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to apply that knowledge here. So the resistance to crowd control debuffs increasing is really good since you do not want that crowd control debuff on a character like Clara. Another thing that Clara has is a thing called Revenge, which increases Savarok's counter damage by 30%. That's even better because now your counter damage is doing even more damage. As for her etalons are pretty good as well. Her first etalon, which is etalons or constellations in this game, her first one is using Clara's skill will not remove the mark of counter on an enemy. That's pretty nice to have since the mark of counter, once again, it's really good for those counter attacks, and basically majority of Clara's kit, or rather her etalons, is increasing her ultimate damage, is reducing the damage that she is taken, and so on. So I feel like Clara overall, once again, as I said, very niche character, but I feel like she could be really good. So if you guys do end up pulling her, I wouldn't feel too bad about it because I feel like in harder game modes that are, really long fights, like Forgotten Hall, even possibly later on Simulated Universe, Clara can be an incredible character for these endgame-like modes, and I feel like she really has a hidden potential in those modes, and of course in the story you can use her as well, and honestly, Clara is a pretty cute character, so I really do like Clara as a whole. Now I'm going to be talking about Sampo, who I love to call Shampoo because we're only a letter or two away. I'm going to make it quick with him since I talked about Clara for so long, but what Shampoo is able to do is become an amazing character to use with a character like Kafka. The reason why this is because of Shampoo's skill set. So the reason why I included Shampoo in this is because Shampoo is able to inflict wind shear, which is essentially wind damage over time, which Kafka benefits from damage over time, as she is able to do more damage to enemies when there is more damage over time inflicted on those enemies. The real cool thing about Shampoo though is his ultimate. His ultimate deals wind damage equal to a percentage of his attack to all enemies, with a 100% base chance to increase targets DOT, which is damage over time, taken by a percentage for 2 turns. I think this is incredible because when you pair it up with a character like Kafka, now that skill that Kafka has, or rather in her skill kit that she's able to do more damage to enemies that have damage over time inflicted on them, now you're doing even more damage to those enemies. So I feel like Shampoo and Kafka, perfect pair, and I feel like he's really niche as well. As you notice, the characters I am talking about in this video are very niche characters, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing because they fit incredibly well for the roles that they are niched into. That kind of is how a niche works, but I feel like these two characters are really good and have their purpose in the game, especially because I know a lot of people aren't really sure about Clara, a lot of people aren't really sure about Shampoo, but I know these two characters can definitely be worthwhile on very specific team comps. The last character I'll be talking about, I'll try to make this one a little quick as well, is going to be Pela. I'm not really sure if Pela is considered underrated or if you guys do think she's really good. I'm not too sure how you guys feel about Pela, but I'm going to talk about her anyway, just in case. Pela is really good due to the fact that she's able to essentially reduce the defense of enemies. She's an incredible debuffer because of this, and she's also able to inflict possible debuffs with her attacks, and she's also able to remove buffs on enemies. She's able to impair them with her skill, so that's really good as well. The reason why I really like Pela is due to the fact that she's able to inflict an exposed status on enemies, and basically exposed enemies will have that defense reduced by a percentage for 2 turns. The reason why this is really good is because you can pair Pela with a really high damage dealer, like, for example, I'm not too sure if you guys call her Zila or Sele. I'm not sure. If you guys have a preference for what you guys want me to call her, please let me know because I never know what to call her. I've been calling her Zila because that's what the voice actors call her, but just let me know. But point is that with Pela, basically her and Zila will be an incredible combo because reducing the defense of enemies and then Zila being able to possibly get that Oko just by, that defense being decreased can be major. because then Zila is able to trigger her resurgence, which resurgence allows her to act immediately again, assuming that she defeated an enemy. So Pela overall is just a great character to have alongside your high damage dealing DPSs. She could work with Jing Yuan as well, and I think overall Pela is a really great character to look into. And if I'm not mistaken, if they do keep the banners the same as CBT3, Pela will actually be on Zila's banner. So when you guys do pull for Zila, if you decide to, Pela will be on that banner, so I think that is pretty good. Just if they do keep that banner the same from the closed beta 3. I rambled on enough about these characters. I think once again, all three of these characters are pretty good. I think Pela is less niche for sure, and I feel like she works like with honestly any high damage dealing DPS, but she would primarily, I feel like, work with currently maybe like Zila, Jing Yuan, and so on. But I feel like once again, Clara, I know I talked about her majority of the video, but I really wanted to go over Clara especially because I feel like she's kind of looked down upon currently, and she definitely has her role, and I hope that me explaining the counterattack does help, because she has the taunts, she has the counterattack, she can reduce the damage taken to her. She's basically like a wall, but a wall that can hurt you back really hard if you want to think about it that way. But yeah, I hope this video helped you guys out. I know I rambled on for a bit too long. Let me know in the comments down below though if any of these characters do interest you, if you do want any of them. And let me know which 5-star you actually want the most. I would love to know that. And also, if you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, and also join the Discord if you want to talk there or engage and just have fun talking about Honkai Star Rail. I hope you all have a nice one. Peace.